Hello and welcome to the third episode of Marie's Bundesliga Minutes for the TransferExchange. What a week we've had in German football. Thank you for tuning in. You're gonna catch up on a lot and I hope you stay with me. So to begin with, I would like to address a matter probably close to English football fans' hearts, and that's the future of Jamal Musiala. In case you haven't heard of Jamal Musiala yet, he is Bayern Munich's latest superstar. He is 18 years old since Friday, as of Friday, and he is also the youngest ever Champions League goal scorer for Bayern Munich, having scored against Lazio Rome in midweek. And what an exciting talent he is. Kind of playing in the same position as Thomas Müller, behind the two central strikers, but he can also play on either wing. He has great technical abilities, a lot of cheek, so he likes to go into these 1v1 situations against defenders much more experienced and older and stronger than him. He does still have the body of a teenager, of a child, but he's been working on that a lot, as sources close to Bayern Munich have told me. So he's been putting in a lot of effort. And his personal story is quite fascinating. He is the son of a Nigerian-British father and a German mother. He grew up in Fulda near Frankfurt after having been born in Stuttgart. And his mum was very young. She was 22 when she had him. And she was one of those superstar moms who wanted to provide for him and his younger sister and also further her education to offer them a better life. So she actually did her university degree in sociology in Stuttgart, and then for an Erasmus semester abroad went to the University of Southampton, St. Mary's, I believe. And what was supposed to be there for 3 months, when little Jamal was 7 years old, they ended up staying a lot longer. And it had something to do with Jamal and his footballing abilities, having been spotted locally in Southampton, this little boy who didn't know any English, but just made friends because he was very socially intelligent, smiled a lot, and because he was the best on the football field. Eventually ended up in Southampton chairman's office, and the chairman was trying to sign the 7-year-old to the academy. And that's kind of what happened until the family decided to move to London, and then Chelsea FC became aware of Jamal. And at that time, and still to this day, Chelsea is one of the most prominent academies in English football. And so they signed him up, and that's where he developed. That's where he made the launch into playing for some of England's national youth teams, including playing with Jude Bellingham, who was formerly at Birmingham and is now at Borussia Dortmund. He's of the same age group. And yeah, Jamal played for all the English youth teams, including the under-21s. And everyone presumed he was gonna play for England because he's part of that golden generation of English talent: Callum Hudson-Odoi, Phil Foden, Jadon Sancho, Mason Mount. There was too many, Mason Greenwood. There are too many to count. And what a group. And Gareth Southgate is a national coach who usually promotes these players early and gives them minutes. And Musiala, of course, grew up in England from 7 to 16 or 17 when Bayern Munich snatched him up from Chelsea. And he moved to Siebener Straße, to Bayern's training grounds. So everyone assumed he was going to play for England, and then this week he decided to call Gareth Southgate and say that he would play for Germany. So yeah, now I've spent 4 minutes talking about a young talent, but I just wanted to make sure you guys are aware the type of player we're dealing with here. And if you want to read any more, I recommend Kerry Howe's long-form article for Goal Germany, which has also been published in England. He touches on some of the personal history of Jamal. I also wrote a long profile for CFB Football. You can find that on my Twitter at Marie Schubo, MARISCHUBO. But moving from talents to more established players, slightly more established players who are just a little bit older, let's look at Borussia Dortmund. So Borussia Dortmund had a good week. They won in the Champions League, they won in the Bundesliga, and things seem to be looking up for them after a few very tough weeks. And that has a lot to do with Jadon Sancho, whose form has been outstanding. And so there were some comments by Hans-Joachim Watzke, also known as Aki Watzke, that's his nickname, the Borussia Dortmund chairman, that raised some eyebrows among the boardrooms of top European clubs this week. And what Watzke said, is that given the pandemic-induced losses for Dortmund and the difficult sporting situation with them perhaps missing qualification for the Champions League in the coming season, they could no longer rule out selling some of their young superstars. And as you will know, some of the most promising players in the game are on Dortmund's books, including Gio Reyna, the US international, who is very gifted in attack in the central position and on the right wing. And of course, Jadon Sancho, who has caught the interest of Manchester United, but Manchester United have apparently kind of chilled that interest a little given the advancement of their own academy graduates in the professional team. And instead, now Chelsea is set to have an eye on him. Chelsea has a big block of former Bundesliga players and indeed German-speaking players. And with their manager, Thomas Tuchel, an admirer of Jadon Sancho, who also knows what it's like to work at Borussia Dortmund, there's definitely an incentive there. They also have the money. It came out this week that they were looking to spend hundreds of millions of pounds again in the summer. So that's something to keep an eye on, regarding Jadon Sancho's future, especially because he's been performing so well since we've come back for the new calendar year. In the first half of the season, he had his first real dip in form, which is normal for a player that young. But now he's providing goals, scoring goals, dribbling week in, week out again, and being the sensational street footballer, so to speak, that we've grown accustomed to seeing in the Bundesliga. Erling Haaland's future is also impacted by Aki Watzke's statement, but to a lesser extent. And that's because Erling Haaland has a release clause in his contract in the coming summer, so summer 2022, worth 75 million euros, meaning in little more than a year, if a top European team that perhaps has more money than they currently do, given the pandemic, wants to snatch up Haaland, then there's very little chance that Dortmund has of keeping him. In my opinion, though, it is more likely that Haaland will stay at Dortmund until then, so that he'll stay for the end of this season and indeed the next season. He is a player who has good advisors around him, whose father was a professional, so has that experience, and he's a humble guy, and he's always made decisions that were kind of building blocks along a long career, going to Salzburg, then going to Dortmund. So I think he's following a clear path, and something that will be interesting to see also in parallel is the trajectory of Kylian Mbappé. They are of similar age and talent, although their playing style is quite different. But they are probably the two most attractive players in European soccer for big clubs to sign, because they're both big promises for the future of any club, given their stardom, their ability to score goals, their ability to tear apart defenses and provide goals as well. So with Kylian Mbappe's contract also being up, not that Haaland's is up, but Haaland has the release clause. With Kylian Mbappe's contract at PSG being up in summer 2022 and PSG under pressure to either extend with him this summer or sell the player, it will be interesting to see where Kylian Mbappé ends up, just because I think it's unlikely that they will both end up at the same club. But what a rivalry for the future. How about those two and them battling it out for the Ballon d'Or, or perhaps ending up in the same league, whether that's La Liga or the Premier League. I think that would be very fun to watch. Now, we haven't mentioned Erling Haaland's nationality. He's Norwegian. But I think that would be a good point for us to transition to another topic, and that is RB Leipzig. Now, RB Leipzig had a very key duel this weekend against Gladbach, and they were they were trailing very early, trailing by 0-2 against Gladbach, Gladbach having scored early. Gladbach was up 2-0 20 minutes into the game, and things were looking dire for Leipzig, especially because Bayern Munich had won, so they were under pressure to keep at it and keep track of Bayern in the Bundesliga table. And then Nkunku scored, and Sørloth, who only came on for the second half, scored 2 goals. And they were the first 2 goals for the young 25-year-old Norwegian striker in the Bundesliga. He was a big money signing in the past summer. Leipzig expected a lot from him. They hoped that he could shoulder part of the weight left by Timo Werner's departure, but he needed some time to get the wheels moving, and he did that yesterday. He scored the 3-2 winning goal in extra time in the second minute after the 90 minutes. And what a day for him. He's good friends with Erling Haaland. They know each other from the national team. Sørloth previously had performed very well at Trabzonspor in Turkey. And before that, he had a stint at Crystal Palace where he didn't quite fit in. So this again is a chance for him to perform well in a top 5 European league, or top 3 European league, I should say. And he's definitely someone to keep an eye on. Okay, so now we already talked about Bayern Munich in the context of Jamal Musiala, but I wanted to bring up Thomas Müller, Jerome Boateng, and Dortmund's Mats Hummels. Now, what do those 3 players have in common? Well, they're all World Cup winners. They all won the World Cup in 2014. They were all pillars of that team, pillars of the national team for many years. And of course, they were all booted out of the German national team by Joachim Löw in recent years. And on Sunday morning, February 28th, Löw is quoted by Kicker, the German sporting magazine, in their Monday edition as saying that he is open to them coming back, but that's suddenly an option. He had categorically ruled that out for a long time. He's now open to the idea of it if that will become a necessity for the Euros in the summer. And whatever that means doesn't matter. This is the most ajar that the door back into the national team has ever been for those 3. And Thomas Müller especially has been on prime form lately. This is perhaps his best season of his career, the second best being the last year. So yeah, what a year for him. And let's also watch that space to see if those 3 perhaps could strengthen the German ranks, who traditionally have had trouble in central defense. So that would be like a club doing a big signing, like signing Hummels and Boateng for central defense would be a big deal. And having that leadership and also the fun for the dressing room that Thomas Müller represents could also be an asset. Now, last but certainly not least, we have to turn to our worry child. Out of all the, say we're the parents of the Bundesliga, of all the clubs, there's always 1 or 2 that we have to keep an eye on and that we're concerned about, and that continues to be Schalke. Schalke lost 5-1 against Stuttgart this weekend. This is a team that last season, or any other season, I mean, Stuttgart was in the second Bundesliga last season, but this is a team that, the Schalke that we've known in the past 2 decades would have wanted to beat. And instead, no one was really surprised that they conceded 5 goals against a promoted side. And why is that? Because everything is wrong with this club. This is a club that, as of Sunday morning, has fired its 4th coach in a season. I shouldn't say fired, because Huub Stevens, who took over on an interim basis before Christmas, wasn't fired. He just did the club a favor of coming back before Christian Groß, the guy that was now fired, could take over. But what a shambles. And the precedent to that was not just the 1-5 defeat at the hands of Stuttgart, but also something that happened in the past week of training. And that shows a lot of what's wrong with this club, because in the winter break, a lot of people were hopeful. Matthew Hoppe was taking off, the young American who had that kind of chutzpah to just try things and didn't have the weight of expectations and responsibilities that some of these older squad members had. That was a massive plus. Another plus was the signature of Klaas-Jan Huntelaar and Sead Kolasinac, two players with a Schalke past who are dedicated to the club, who believe in this club, and who both left comfortable environments at Ajax Amsterdam and Arsenal, and who both left comfortable paychecks and clubs where they played a role on the fringes, not a big role, but they got their minutes. And they both came to Gelsenkirchen at a time of crisis to help save their team. And that's romantic. That's lovely in this day and age. Of course, Schalke also signed Shkodran Mustafi from Arsenal, a player who has a lot of international experience. And they signed William from the right winger and the person for the right flank from Wolfsburg. So there was definitely a change of atmosphere, a change of vibe, a sense of better things to come. And in the end, it was three of those players. It was Mustafi, Kolasinac and Huntelaar who last week, and this was reported by multiple German news outlets, including Sport 1, went to see Jochen Schneider, the general manager of Schalke, and demanded that Christian Groß, the coach, be let go. They said that he doesn't reach the players, that he's tactically unfit for the position, that he has a lack of respect for the players. And I mean, there's a pre-story to that, and that is that he frequently mispronounced some of the players, calling Alessandro Schöpf, the Austrian international, Massimo Schöpf, and calling Can Bozdoğan Can Erdoğan, like the Turkish. So that was like a wordplay between Can Ayhan, who was at Schalke in the past and is a Schalke Academy graduate, and of course Erdoğan, the Turkish president. So that's somewhere you don't want to slip. And if we put ourselves into those shoes, if we're at an office, if we're at a workplace and we have a new boss or we're new to a team, if people mispronounce our name, it might be funny for once, but it also makes us think about our position there and whether we are respected and liked for who we are. So Christian Groß weathered that storm. Schneider said, "You got to be kidding me. You guys need to, buckle up and take charge of your own career." But then lost 5-1 against Stuttgart. And he was let go alongside with Jochen Schneider, the general manager, and the head of the athletics department, so the fitness department, and Sascha Rita, who is a former Schalke left back and who, after his active career, stayed on to be the team manager. So there was a mass firing of 4 people as of Sunday morning, and the training for the next 2 days will be led by the fitness team, the remaining fitness instructors. So what is going on at Schalke and what comes next? It's definitely a minefield. Sead Kolasinac, who came up through the Schalke Academy, as did players like Mesut Özil, Benedikt Hövedes, Leroy Sané, Joel Matip. I mean, Schalke has one of the most famed academies in the world, and that has a lot to do with Norbert Elgert, their long-haired, green tea drinking guru under-19 coach who has always instructed his players to be great people first, leaders of the community. I interviewed him in 2018, and he told me an anecdote of how he took the under-19 Schalke players on a training camp before the season, and he instructed them to thank all the cleaning staff, thank the catering people in the hotel, and treat everyone as if they were their own family, their own mothers. And he leaves a big impression on these players. Mesut Özil has frequently thanked him, invited him to see him at Real Madrid and Arsenal. And sorry to have gone off on the tangent, but the reason I raise Norbert Elgert is because Sead Kolasinac apparently asked Elgert to step up and coach the senior Schalke's senior side until the end of the season. Now, why would he do that? Schalke has 9 points out of 23 games. They are 8 points behind the next in the Bundesliga table. They are 9 points from being in the relegation playoff position. So they're in trouble, and this is a lose-lose thing for Elgert, who has frequently in the past 2 decades been asked to either overtake as head coach or on an interim basis, and has always ruled it out because he so values his role working with young players. So I don't think we will see that. I have no idea who's going to take over. This is not a position that you want to be in charge of, because it's pretty clear that Schalke is going down, and who wants to be the sacrificial lamb to be the coach that went down of Schalke to the second Bundesliga for the first time since 1989. So this is a club to watch. It's still a club that is the second largest club in Germany in terms of fee-paying, card-carrying members. Schalke has 160,000 members scattered all over the country, many, of course, in the industrial Ruhr Valley where Schalke is based. So this is a club that is going to make itself heard, whether in the first or second Bundesliga, that still has exciting young players like Malik Chiao, Timo Becker or Matthew Hoppe, that still has some big name players like the German international Suat Serdar or the French-Moroccan creative player Amin Arid. So it's a club that we will look at again in the future. And on that note, that's it from me for this week. This is the longest episode yet. If you're still listening to me now, thank you for your time. I hope you enjoy the rest of your weekend. And as ever, tweet at me or follow me at Marie Schubo on Twitter, MarieSchubo. And I'd love to hear from you and get your ideas of what to cover in future episodes. Bye bye.